Hey, come here. You like pro wrestling? We got a little something for you. Two fans, 3,000 miles away. We each been watching for more than 30 years. Celebrate the art form, the action, the homoeroticism. We ain't rating matches. We ain't analyzing stories. We ain't experts. We just sit down, shut up, and mark out! Hello, everybody. It's Blade Daily coming at you with a very special edition of Sit Down, Shut Up, Mark Out, a pro wrestling podcast about pro wrestling. And I have a very special guest with me today. That is Ruthless Pro Wrestling commentator Peapod. Peapod, say hello to the good people.
Hello, good people. Thank you so much for taking some time out and talking with me.
Very fortunate timing because you have a big event coming up in Berwyn, Illinois on Saturday, July 20th. And that would be Ruthless Pro Wrestling, Scum of the Earth. Saturday, July 20th.
So, Ruthless Pro Wrestling, a little bit of background for us. We are a independent wrestling company. We're based out of the Northwest Ohio, Southeast Michigan area. We're based out of the Midwest. You can check out all of our stuff on IWTV. That is a independent wrestling television. That is platform is about $10 a month. You can view independent wrestling from across the nation, including also some international stuff as well. And we broadcast live. A lot of our shows are on there as well. If not live, it's also live to tape. So we're very excited. So you can see live wrestling in the flesh there. And we've been around since late 2020. Ironically, we launched in the middle of the lockdowns and the pandemic. We launched during a time where we could safely, like, we did an outdoor show in the fall of 2020 where we could spread everybody out and everything. And then in 2021, we did a couple of shows and then we started building more and more. And I myself, I am a former radio broadcaster of 11 years. And I joined when I left the radio industry to check out some more greener pastures of sorts. I was brought on to the good people of Ruthless Pro Wrestling, and I've been their head commentator now for a while now. We've called some incredible moments with some incredible individuals. If you follow anything of independent wrestling, you may recognize some of the people that we're going to be talking about. But we're very excited. We are a death match company, but we do also a variety of other matches. We have tag matches. We have non-death matches and everything. But we're primarily have men and women hitting each other with very questionable objects, and
Yes.
Definitely a wild world, but there's something about live death matches that just, kind of it scratches an itch, especially if you're like a horror fan and like you like some of that stuff and everything, or like, for example, if you're loving the stuff that you see on like AEW or maybe some of the stuff in like New Japan or even Big Japan. Some of that stuff, the international stuff, the UK scene has a great deathmatch scene. You'll like what we do here at Ruthless Pro.
I was watching your reel, and there is literally quite a few moments with a guy with a fucking light tube sticking out of his head. It's, if deathmatch wrestling is where it's at for you, and it is for a lot of people, this is high-quality deathmatch action fans. So make sure that you either make a point to be there if you're in the broader Chicagoland area.
Yeah. It's at the world-famous Berwyn Eagles, so, like, anybody who was in WWE or AEW now performed at the Berwyn Eagles.
Right.
So it's a fantastic venue.
It's a venue I've heard of for sure. So, and I'm in Seattle. So if I've heard of it, probably some cool stuff has happened there at some point. So that's pretty awesome. And there's going to be some cool stuff happening there July 20th. Very, very exciting. Very exciting. So you do commentary for Ruthless Pro, but you also work for a number of other organizations. Do you want to give some shout outs while we're at it?
Yeah, I'll give some shout outs. I mean, RPW is my home promotion. And this year also, I've been trying to just, branch out a little bit. Much like anybody on the independent scene, you take more bookings for sort. And it's no different in the being a commentator. A lot of the commentators that I look up to personally they jump around the independent scene. They don't necessarily stick with like one company, but they have the places that they are known for. And, my stuff is at Ruthless Pro, but I do some work for another company based out of now the Detroit area, was out of Indiana. Now they've kind of shifted over to the greater Michigan area for Flophouse Wrestling. Very, fun, no nonsense type of wrestling. It's like I say no nonsense. Like recently they just did a show in the parking lot of a gaming store in Detroit. And they called it Shine Like a Wizard, and that's also on IWTV. Most of the stuff I do is available on IWTV, or can be easily accessed from like YouTube or something like that. I also have been doing stuff recently for a family-friendly promotion based out of the Indiana area called Fantastic League of Wrestling. A lot of their stuff is on YouTube. Flow for short. If you were a fan of like Chikara back in like the mid to late 2000s, more family friendly, kind of just like wacky characters going at it, you'll love Flow. We got some cool stuff coming up with that during Labor Day weekend. For sure that'll be recorded, and you can watch matches on Saturday mornings. They have a little mini show called Saturday Morning Grapple Masters. You can check that out on YouTube as well. And then I do stuff out of the some post-production stuff for a show for a company out of Salt Lake City, and it's called the Lucha Project. It's kind of getting off the ground, and very fun to kind of cover a lot of the people on the West Coast as well. Very interesting scenes out there, big lucha scene as well. And then just the day of this recording, I was just announced that I'm going to be one of the voices of a all women's promotion called Divine Women's Pro Wrestling, and they've recently come on under new management. They just kind of started up again, and their big first show is coming up in September, and I believe that's going to be taped for YouTube. And there's a lot of other places I sometimes will jump up, and I always try to be very active on socials and everything. I'll give those cheap plugs later. But it's a lot of fun. I just it's just kind of working out, and then just working on myself and going out there and covering great wrestling with some good people, because wrestling is rad.
Wrestling is rad. That is very cool, man. It sounds like you have a lot of different kinds of wrestling. Some no nonsense about their nonsense wrestling, which I love that shit. I am a big Chikara fan. I really enjoyed Chikara for what it was when it was around. Obviously, a lot of the people from Chikara are huge stars now in the wrestling business, as a lot of people from 15 years ago are huge stars in the wrestling business at this current time that were huge indie stars.
It's crazy to see, like, being a fan of like the independents. When I got into more independent wrestling, like when I was in my college years, in like the mid to late 2000s, and then following them on those platforms, and then all of a sudden I see them on WWE television. I see them on AEW television. I saw them in like TNA Impact, and I remember racing home and watching the very first TNA episode on Fox Sports Net. Seeing Impact and seeing AJ Styles wrestle and everything. And you see what he's doing. Guys like Kevin Owens, known as Kevin Steen in the independents. El Generico now being Sami Zayn. A lot of these other cats. Everybody in the Dark Order. Claudio, Eddie Kingston. I've seen these cats. I've seen these cats up close and personal. Seeing them on indie shows. So seeing them on like television, it's wild. It's weird and wild, and it's crazy. Like I saw somebody on Twitter like giving Daddy Magic their flowers and everything, and I'm like, I remember him and Angelo Parker being 2.0 pun promos on Chikara. Trying to get those 3 tag wins in a row to win the tag title, go for a tag title shot, and like I remember all of that, and it makes my heart like just so full to see these people get their flowers and being successful on like a national stage, and then people all loving it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's, and I think that's the beauty of independent wrestling is it's kind of like music, right? Where like you see this incredible band that's opening for a local band with a big draw, and you're like, that opening band was awesome. And then like 2 years from then, they're like opening on some huge arena tour or something. It's amazing to watch these people become stars. I've had a similar experience, no matter how many big national companies or international companies there are, independent wrestling is the lifeblood of pro wrestling. That is where the stars of tomorrow are coming from. And you can see them right fucking now. And that's the beauty of it. So don't waste your opportunities, especially if you live in the Midwest or the East Coast that is teeming with independent wrestling.
There's a lot.
I don't think people rationally kind of understand what an endeavor it is to put on a wrestling show, because
what you're telling me that people don't have a good point of view about wrestling?
No, I know it's shocking. I was personally surprised myself when I one day realized that, but take it out of the big giant, Tony Khan, AEW's not profitable. It's like, yeah, no shit. Like, probably not, like not yet. But like, just even like small independent shows, like making those profitable when you're playing with so many less variables in certain ways and so many more in others. And you have all these regulations you're trying to stay within the rules of, and you want to pay your performers, and you want to pay your staff, and you want to pay the production. And, you are balancing on a very precarious kind of razor's edge of being profitable or not at best. It's a labor of love. It really is. And most people who are in the wrestling business, on the business side or on the wrestler side, are doing it out of passion and out of love first, because otherwise there's no reason to do it.
Literally, when I was jumping onto RPW, our promoter Chris Kohlenberg goes, I can't pay a lot. I can't barely pay you at all. It's a labor of love. And I'm like, I have my bills paid. I have a 9 to 5. As long as it doesn't negatively affect my personal, professional life and my work and my family, I'm in it. And it hasn't. And we've gotten to the point where we can do a lot more now. And everybody gets paid. Everybody gets their share. Everybody gets what we've been going for. But, right at the beginning, there were some growing pains. There was, doing shows where, we would come to the place and, start setting up, and then you do the show, and then you stay over and clean up, and, you may not get a lot, it's, but it's a lot of things is for, the quote unquote exposure, the experience and everything. But like, if you want to be a part of something, there are certain things you kind of have to do. You have to do it for the love of it. And like, that's what we do in RPW. That's what we do. Like a lot of these independent wrestlers. And, at the end of the day, like, we're all fans of wrestling. The idea of like calling somebody a mark, yeah, we're all marks. That's why we're here. That's why these people are doing what they're doing to perform for people. And, at the end of the day, we all want to be successful. We all want to see the wrestling world successful. I talk about a little of this little cycle of being a wrestling fan and then like being involved in wrestling. You start out being like a fan. You just see what's on television, your WWE, your whatever, your AEW, your whatever. You watch the wrestling, and then you start learning a little bit more about like the back end from like places like Meltzer and like the dirt sheets and et cetera. You learn a little bit more about like behind the curtain and everything. And then you kind of get to a point where you're thinking that like, oh, I can book better, or like, I think the booking is this and everything. And that could be fun, but also can be borderline very annoying. And I've seen it by a lot of people that like, I'm just like, oh my God, if you only knew what's involved and everything. And that's the little point. And then in this little cycle where like a lot of people end up being really like, it gets really hard to be a wrestling fan sometimes, because a lot of people just kind of take it extremely. I'll give a side story before I finish my cycle. I was recently helping out at another show, and I was helping with a meet and greet with a very well-known wrestler. I'm not going to. I'll tell you after the show, but I'll tell you. But like this is a very well-liked, well-respected legend, and this kid went up to him and was telling him like rumors and stories to this dude's face about AEW. And I'm just like, it was the most awkward conversation I ever did. And the guy, like, he brushed it off. He smiled it off. You know, he just kind of listened, let the guy, like, run it through. But I'm just like, I can never go up to another wrestler and spew things that I've read online that may or may not be true and everything. Like, that guy has, like, zero control over it. He's, you know, a worker or whatever and everything. So I feel like at that point, like, that's where it teeters. But then, you know, if you do want to get involved in everything, then you like when you're so involved in something like this, and this is where I'm at, the last part of the cycle, I end up being like just a fan again, because then like, even though I know what goes into a show, I also love it from everything. And I keep an eye on stuff like, oh, this is great. Or, hey, that promo package was great. Or, hey, these graphics look good. Or, hey, that wrestler looks good for this new stuff. Like now I know all the background on what brings on a show. Now I'm not only a fan of the show, of the wrestling, of the match itself, but all the stuff that led into that as well, I become more of a fan of as well. So you get an even more appreciation of the work going into it. And that's what I love about wrestling and being involved in all of this, is that work on, you know, putting all that stuff together. And then you rewatch everything. You're just like, wow, we really did it.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, well, and what a collaborative endeavor the whole thing is, right? Like you putting a wrestling show on is a collaboration of like a couple dozen people. It's not like, you know, it's not like one guy made that show happen. You have all of the performers, you have the referees, you have the commentators, you have the ring announcer, you have, you know, people making sure lighting and all that stuff is happening. It's a huge team of people who are making one event happen, regardless of the size, right? And I think, you know, you touched on a really important thing that, you know, this podcast is really designed to kind of attack, which is there's this huge difference between being like an educated and discerning viewer of wrestling and being like a antagonistic prick, where it's like, you know better than the people who book how to book wrestling. And almost everybody at one point or another who kind of goes off on these tangents, when you ask them what they would do, it's like, well, my favorite would win the title. Okay, and then what? And they never, ever have an answer beyond that. And, you know, these silly conversations that happen, you know, in social media and stuff about blah, blah, blah doesn't tell stories. Okay, what should they do? Well, my favorite should win. That's not a story either. You know,
no.
Like
when I get my stuff ready for a show, you know, I do my research for everybody on the card, you know, and then I also, you know, the day of the show, I go around, I talk to every talent and go, hey, you know, this is what I got. Is there anything specific you want me to put over? Is there something specific you want me to concentrate on? And a lot of wrestlers will sit me down and tell me the whole thing. And then some wrestlers are just like, hey, you do a good job. You know enough, you know, concentrate on ABC moves and we're good to go. You know, everybody's their own artist. You know, and that's the thing about wrestling. It's in this like weird corner between, you know, actual sports and you know, entertainment. You know, when we talk about the idea of the phrase sports entertainment, you know, people roll their eyes about that, especially wrestling fans. But it really, that's what it is. You know, it's an athletic play, more or less. You know, it's a lot of these people put time and effort into what they put into. You know, some people on our card, for example, for Scum of the Earth, that's going to be on July 20th. You know, I'm looking at it right in front of me. You know, I got somebody like Atticus Cogar, that our world heavyweight champion. You know, he takes a lot of time and effort into his promos, almost like a mini movie that gets you interested and involved in what he is doing. I've seen stuff like another one we have for Judge Joe Dredd, who's based out of the Los Angeles area. He does a lot of big character work on everything. We have a big feud going on or wrapping around our RPW tag titles with the faction known as 440 that is splintered off into two separate factions. And these factions are now, it's almost a civil war. And it's kind of being involved into, the tag title scene because a lot of these people have all trained together. They grew up together. They're legit, friends. But when it comes to business time, business is business. So you see that all involved in everything. You see all these pieces and parts. People work hard on their look, on how their presentation, how they do everything. It's a lot of work, and it's not only just athletics of, you got to be in shape, but it's also the character work and how you present yourself and the promos and then the social media work afterwards and all of that. It's, you never stop having to turn it on, for everybody. You always have to be somewhat 1 foot in character and 1 foot out.
So we got this event. You talked a little bit about the main event. So why don't we run down the card a little bit?
Yeah, we'll run down the card. We'll break it down together. We'll start at our poster. A lot of our nice, well done graphics and everything are done, and you can check it out at ruthlesspro.com. All the links to all of our socials, all our stuff is there. Our RPW heavyweight champion, Atticus Cogar, the last nail, will be defended against a man who has a lot of experience on and off television in Jake Christ. Both these cats are two of Ohio's best, and they're going to battling it out for our what I like to call Big Orange, because our colors for RPW is orange and black, and the RPW title is on orange leather. So I like to call it as Big Orange, but our heavyweight title will be on the line between those two guys. So two of Ohio's best going to be battling out in Chicago.
Okay, that's great. No, I assumed that was Jake Christ. Mm-hmm. That's a name I am very familiar with. I have seen a lot. Also, just so it's been stated, Taz, chill the fuck out on the orange and black, okay? Like, they are just colors. Other people can use them.
It's a different shade of orange. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's all right.
It's okay. So if Taz ends up hearing this, just, buddy, it's all right.
If Taz hears it, we invite him out to a show. Right? Absolutely. We're all fans of Taz.
No, yeah, have him send a cease and desist. Read it in the ring or something.
Exactly. But I digress. So
yes. Well, that sounds awesome. The last nail, I like that. That's a great moniker.
It's a great moniker. I think Atticus Cogar is a very smart wrestler. He's a very dangerous wrestler. He's been doing a lot of death matches, and he's openly stated that he might be, slowing down on the death matches. And our RPW title matches are non-death matches and everything. So it's nice to see him flex a little bit of that style, because when you think death matches, you think untrained wrestlers and everything. That could be further from the truth. These people are trained, they do wrestling, they know how to wrestle, and then they go into the world of death matches itself, and kind of that hybrid style, which kind of goes into my next another big match, a name that I know it's a little controversial, but I think this man is really trying to better himself and better the people around him, and he himself is on kind of his somewhat of a farewell tour of stuff for wrestling. Drake Younger, the Psycho Shooter, 20-some years experience, former WWE referee. Really has, it looks fantastic for a man. I think he was in his, if he's not in his late 30s, he might be in his early 40s. Don't quote me on that. I might have to look that up before our show, but he's in incredible shape. And he is a man that has done that hybrid style. If you check out old CZW, IWA Mid-South matches, the name of Drake Younger. He's going to be taking on a man that is a third generation wrestler based out of the Michigan area. known as Malcolm Monroe III, MM3, who himself is known as a hybrid wrestler. I've seen this man chain wrestle. I've seen this man high fly. I've seen this man go toe-to-toe in death matches. He really wants to truly do it all. So it's a battle of, I don't want to call it new versus old, but, two men that are going to be very unique, who knows how to weave in and out of different wrestling styles, facing off at Scum of the Earth on July 20th. For anybody who's in the wrestling business and wants to, learn more, we are also having a training seminar with Drake Younger before the show. So you can check that out at ruthlesspro.com. I'll shift down a little bit. I talked about this man a little bit before. We're talking about like presentation, everything. Judge Joe Dredd. He is based out of Los Angeles. We are one of the few people on this side of the country that will focus on, we book openly Dredd, and I think he's an incredible athlete. He's one of these big hosses that can move in the death match. And he's taking on a man that is known as Brooklyn Black Death. He's the king of the no-ring death match. He runs a no-ring promotion called New Fear City, based out of the Brooklyn, New York area. You can check some of that stuff out on YouTube as well as IWTV, known as Casanova Valentine. So two big hosses kind of going at it. And I love me a good hoss fight. And I think Dredd and Valentine will definitely tear the house down for that match.
Well, that's cool. That's going to be fun. And then another competitor, Kogar, on the card here. So are these related Kogars here?
They are related Kogars, in real life related Kogars. Otis Kogar.
Okay.
We talk about Atticus Kogar. We talking about now it's Otis Kogar. He's known as Evil Incarnate. He's taking out a man that is a former RPW Rust Belt Deathmatch champion in the lovable psychopath Tommy Vendetta. And these two have had, I know, right? These two have had big issues with each other across the independent scene. Otis and Tommy during WrestleMania week, they were performing at another company during around the Pennsylvania, New Jersey area, and Otis, kind of chucked a chair at Tommy and kind of partially concussed him, and it tends to happen. And Tommy couldn't perform for our show the next night, unfortunately, and he had his sometime tag team partner in MM3, who I just mentioned before, fill in to help defend the Rust Belt Deathmatch title, and unfortunately couldn't get the job done. And it was won by a gentleman named Lou Nixon, who is now currently in the United Kingdom, defending it all across the UK scene. And some of those defenses can be found on our YouTube page, making our RPW Rust Belt Deathmatch Championship a world championship. So bad blood in this match between Otis and Tommy going into July 20th for Scum of the Earth. And then another crazy match coming up as we shift over to the card. This is great. So Eric Dillinger, tremendous athlete. I see this cat doing a lot of great matches across the Midwest scene. And, anytime I see like YouTube clips or like social media clips, people are seeing it from him. It's usually during one of his matches, Eric Dillinger's matches. But unfortunately, RPW hasn't gotten the job done yet. He's had some great matches in RPW that you can check out at IWTV. But now he has a huge test against an international juggernaut, a guy named Schlack. If you've never met Schlack, if you've never seen a match of Schlack, imagine a man named Schlack. That's what he looks like. This guy is built like a brick shithouse. He's missing teeth. He has tattoos on his face all over. He's done death metal music. Like, this dude is an animal, and he's like a living gorilla. He's just built just like hard as nails, and he's like built like a Mack truck, and he is a devastating deathmatch wrestler. He's done international tours in Japan and Mexico and everything. And he's a brute force. So it's not going to be an easy task for Eric Dillinger, but maybe Dillinger can pull out his first W in RPW. And Schlack is, racking up the wins. And we got a big deathmatch tournament coming up in August called King of the Kill. Schlack's involved in that. So, it's going to be nuts. A couple of the people on this card is going to be involved in that, and more info at ruthlesspro.com.
I'll have the website and related links in the show notes. Folks, go look at the show notes.
Go check it out. And we got tag team action as well. We got 2 great tag team matches. One involving real life husband and wife duo, Schwartzy and Randy West, better known sometimes as the Schwett. Kind of, like the Benefer type name, you kind of put them together. They're trying to rack up some wins and trying to say they want to be involved with tag team gold. They're going to be taking on a team that legit combined total of over 500 pounds, both making their debut with RPW. A gentleman named Brutus Dillon and Bull Bronson, big effing bulls. So a tough task, but Schwartzy is a former RPW Kamikaze Championship. It's a Kamikaze Championship is our we have a deathmatch title that kind of floats around the scene that can be defended in other countries, or excuse me, not other countries, in other companies as well, and has made some defenses as well when he was our inaugural champion. And I spoke about Randy West about being the longest reigning RPW Rust Belt deathmatch champion as well. And she lost it to actually just shy of 700 days to Tommy Vendetta. So, you can check out a lot of those matches and a lot of those stories from a lot of our shows on IWTV. So, but the Schwetts want to get tag team gold, and they want to try to get another W underneath their belts, but they got to go through some big effing bulls.
Big fucking bulls.
Big fucking bulls. Absolutely. And then we shift over to our RPW tag team champions, our inaugural tag team champions. They've held it for almost close to 1,000 days as Midwest Scum. That's the tag name. They're going to be defending it against, and they got sucked in and being involved in the story of 440. I talked about it a little bit. 440 was a big faction on the independent scene, on the Midwest scene, and they have fractured into 2 groups, 440 yellow, 440 blue, because a lot of their colors were green. So that's how it kind of fractured. Oh. And 440 blue with Ricky Shane Page, who is one of the founders of 440, has, kind of come back, and he turned his back on the rest of 440, especially Atticus, which I mentioned before. Atticus, the leader of 440 Yellow, he turned his back on them, and then he kind of went his own way and then came back and caused more ruckus and more problems. And now he has brought in his, faction of people claiming that they're part of 440. So we have 2 factions facing off against each other, where 440 Blue once involved with the RPW Tag Team Champions. So Ricky Shane Page, Vincent Nothing, better known sometimes as Faith in Nothing, better known now as 440 Blue. They're going to be taking on Midwest Scum, which recently at our previous show done during WrestleMania week called Miasma, that Zach Thomas, one half of the RPW Tag Team Champions, was granted access into 440 in the yellow side because he was always involved with all the characters in that. Do a little bit of history on 440, and you'll learn more about a lot of these cats as well. And then the final match, as I spoke before, is the RPW Kamikaze Championship. Remington Roar, the Carnivore, a man that his mantra is eat or be eaten. This man is literally gets bigger and bigger every time I see him. He is no nonsense, comes to the ring with a machete, ready to just take a bite out of literally and physically, not necessarily metaphorically, out of his importance against the dirty white boy, Detroit native, Detroit punk himself, Chuck Stein, for another title defense of the Kamikaze Championship. So check it all out. If any of this is tickling your fancy, you can go check it out, ruthlesspro.com, and check out all of our shows on IWTV and see it live on July 20th.
That is incredible, man. That is a very, very loaded show. If you love deathmatch wrestling, if you love spectacle, you're not going to want to miss Scum of the Earth presented by Ruthless Pro Wrestling. We will have the link in the show notes. So, whether you're local or whether you want to watch it on your screen, on a screen, it's all there for you to see, baby. Yeah. Very, very cool. Switching gears.
Yeah.
let me ask you, kind of, you had talked about some of your favorite commentators. Who are some of your favorite commentators?
I love so one of my favorite commentators, and when people ask me about like what's your commentary style, I this is the closest thing, and because I'm still trying to like shape my commentary style.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like I mentioned before, I'm a former radio broadcaster of 11 years, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I have that broadcasting background and everything. But like I've been doing independent wrestling now for about 3, and I think my 3rd anniversary was just past April, because I joined up in RPW right still in the beginning in 2021. Now it's 2024, so you do the math. So the person that I kind of like gear towards, and I also always listen to, is Ian Riccaboni of Ring of Honor. He's fantastic. I love Ian's style. He is someone that I feel that like has that perfect combination of professionalism, dry humor, but very, you know, can roll with the punches, can get you very emotionally, you know, involved in doing matches. I think he has a great voice. I think him and Caprice Coleman does a great job in doing commentary. Another great commentator that I really love is Veda Scott.
Mm-hmm.
They do some phenomenal work across the independent scene, and you know, we talked about how I'm trying to do more in the range of wrestling, and that's what I always want to be. Is like I want to be one of those people that when you book me, I can jump in and do death matches, and then I can jump in and do like family friendly, and then I can jump in and do, you know, more emotional stuff, or I can do international, I can do lucha, I can do whatever. And Veda Scott is one of those people that can do it all, and I adore them so much, and I am in awe of the work that they are doing right now. Another person on the independent scene that I really like is Nick Maniwa. You know, you can remember some of his stuff from early days in IWA Mid-South. And a lot of those southern territories. Great voice, great mind. Been doing it for a while. I was lucky to call a show with him before for Flophouse, and that was one of my first times doing commentary for another company outside of RPW. Was with Flophouse, and he was like the main guy doing Flophouse stuff. And then I've kind of now like started doing more with Flophouse and everything, because his schedule can't necessarily line up as much with Flophouse. And he even talked to me. He goes, you know, I'm so glad that like they are working with someone who cares so much about it, like you will. And he's a great dude and everything. And you know, I love a lot of the, you know, the old school people. You know, I love, you know, Tony Schiavone, and you know, Jim Ross is a classic person. You know, I love the work of Taz and Michael Cole, and Taz and Excalibur. Taz is one of those great color guys that can be, you know, you put him in with anybody and they will do a fantastic job. And I really enjoy a lot of his stuff as well. So those are some of my favorites, and some of the people that I, you know, try to work hard to not necessarily emulate, but like when I study wrestling, that's who I want. And one more, honestly, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about him. Walker Stewart from the current New Japan Pro Wrestling English commentator. I actually had the great opportunity to kind of sit down and pick his brain a little bit. And me and him kind of went through a lot of my commentary style and kind of and he gave me a lot of tips, and I can't wait to do this show for Scum of the Earth and kind of apply a lot of that stuff, because I feel like I do better in a live environment, not necessarily post-production. Nothing wrong with post-production. Love it. I could basically be in my studio at home and record wrestling with my commentary partner, John Bullard, for RPW and, you know, the Lucha Project, and for Flow. That's his company as well, Fantastic League of Wrestling. I get to do that with him, and because he's based out of the Indiana, Illinois area. I'm based out of Michigan. We pull up StreamYard, we record a show together, and I mix it down and everything, and he puts it together. It's a real teamwork for that. But there's nothing about like live in the moment. You see it in front of you. No, you know, no safety net. Just go at it. And I always kind of work better in those environments. So, but Walker Stewart, very great mind for such a young age, doing some fantastic work. He is giving me so much advice for someone. He's so knowledgeable. I'm almost 40 and doing this just for fun, because I get more emotionally fulfilled doing this than I ever did in radio. And I just absolutely love doing it and learning for someone like Walker and his age and his experience. He's going to do some phenomenal things for years to come. And I'm very excited. So those are the people that I really like gravitate towards.
Walker also had, in my opinion, a very difficult job stepping into the shoes of Kevin Kelly, who, you know, maybe somewhat controversial in the wrestling space at the moment, but like Kevin Kelly was a huge reason that a lot of people got hooked on New Japan over the last 10 years. What an incredible storyteller who could, you know, not only tell the story of a match, but tell all the details leading up to the match, or the history of a rivalry or whatever. You know, I really predominantly knew Kevin from his time in WWE in the late 90s, early 2000s, you know, as unfortunately The Rock's personal whipping boy. But to see how far he had come, you know, watching New Japan, and then it's unfortunate the way things worked out in AEW for him. But Walker had some big shoes to fill. But, you know, I've seen him enough, and I think he's great. I think he's doing a fantastic job. And he's making it his own thing. He's not trying to be Kevin Kelly. He's just stepping in and making it his own thing. And man, what a voice. I can't believe that guy is as young as he is. He's like in his 20s, isn't he?
He's like, I think, early to mid 20s.
Holy shit.
Yeah, he's not trying to be the next Kevin Kelly, and I'm not trying to be the next Ian Riccaboni. I want to be the first Peapod, and he's trying to be the first, you know, he's trying to be the first Walker Stewart. So, you know, it's great, and I love all the voices and the people that want to get involved. You know, he was telling me that, you know, it's not easy doing what we do, especially in the independent scene. Independent wrestling, commentating, you know, is not easy to do. And, you know, a lot of people end up trying to, you know, put themselves over, and you're not, you know, and then you put deathmatch on top of it, and it's just, you know, you're getting some very interesting people doing the commentary for stuff. And he's like, you are doing a fantastic job for someone who had the experience and everything. And that broadcasting style does come out during your matches. But so this is how you can fine tune it. This is what you can do a little bit better. This is how you can tell a little bit more stories. Because, you know, he was telling me, it's like, you call wrestling like it's literally a broadcasting on radio, which is not necessarily a bad thing to do. You got to just, you know, do a little bit more story work, a little bit more emotional work, a little bit of, you know, like, why do a little bit more caring and you know, painting more of a picture than necessarily just kind of calling the moves and everything, which that is hard in itself. I don't know how Excalibur did it and currently does it, but, you know, I have a hard time sometimes screwing up between belly to belly and belly to back suplex. You know? I
mean, yeah.
So, yeah. It's tough.
It you know, there was the 90s wrestling commentary, you know, Vince McMahon, what a maneuver or whatever. But, you know, like to today now where Tony Schiavone knows the name of more moves than I do. Yeah. And, you know, it's become a whole different fucking thing, you know. I mean, Schiavone's like, and there's a Tieris. And I'm like, a what?
What?
Yeah.
Gesundheit.
Yeah. So final question for you, Peapod. So here you are. You are 3 years in. You are, you know, kind of traveling around, making a name for yourself, seeing wrestling from a whole bunch of different angles. Very good. Very good on you. It is a craft that you have to just do to get better at, right?
Yeah.
But you're around all these deathmatch wrestlers. And you're around these scary motherfuckers who are like breaking light tubes over each other and stabbing each other. What are these guys like when they're not wrestling?
Deathmatch wrestlers, not to break kayfabe, but a lot of these deathmatch wrestlers are the nicest people you will ever meet. I've played Magic the Gathering with Remington Roar. They are big dorks. They are some of our wrestlers are family men and women. You know, they do this for the love of the people. Are just like chill as hell dudes. I'm in a group chat with a handful of them, and we're just sending stupid memes to each other and everything. And you know, some of it's like bitching about our days and everything. They're regular people, you know. And like And even at the end of the day, like I still get starstruck. There's a lot of wrestlers that I still get starstruck because, like, for example, like Ricky Shane Page. I remember him back in the early days of Cleveland All Pro Wrestling, where he wore like a weird looking mask, called himself Christian Faith, looking like a broke ass Spawn character. And I remember him and seeing his stuff that he's done in like GCW and, a lot of the death matches in CZW and IW Mid-South and all those places. And, and I've talked to him actively and, I've, doing work with him. And he's such a, very, very nice guy, very down to earth, very real guy. He'll tell you if you don't like something, he'll tell it straight to your face, but very supportive. Atticus Cogar is very nice, very, very artsy gentleman. Otis Cogar is probably one of the nicest wrestlers that I've ever met. He like one day he actively like came up to me at a show before a show and goes, "Hey, how's the new job? How's your wife? How's family? How's your birthday?" Because I posted it on social media. I'm just like, and to me, like that meant the world. I'm just like, I feel like I'm still like a nobody. I have bad sometimes, imposter syndrome.
Sure.
To be honest. So it's a little bit different, but, I'm trying to embrace it a little bit more. I'm just like, yeah, I worked very hard to do this, and people have reached out to me and want me to be involved in their product and everything. And I want to give back to a lot of people and see what I can do more, not only just because I want to get more bookings, but also because I really care and seeing people flourish. And, that's what I wanted to do in radio and, give people a platform. That's what I did in my radio morning shows and everything. I wanted to bring people that people wouldn't necessarily bring on as a guest because they're not paying advertising dollars or whatever. And I didn't give a shit. I wanted to bring them on, tell them stories because people get excited about, being on the radio still because it was still a cool thing. I would put local artists on, there. I did a local music show and coverage of that and everything. And that's what I want to do. I want to help give a platform to others. And if I can be involved in someone's project and their love, and blood, sweat, and tears into something, I'm happy to do it. It's tough out there. It's freaking tough out there for a lot of things right now, to say the least. Not to get in any kind of political, social, economical stance, everything. This is not that podcast, but it's tough to do a lot of things nowadays.
It is.
And it's hard to be positive. It's hard to, show something you love, to be out there in the masses and get people interested in it. So if I can help boost that with my energy, my work, my, efforts and everything, then that's great. So that's what it is. But wrestlers, deathmatch wrestlers are the nicest people you'll ever meet, honest to God.
I had a funny feeling that was probably the case because you either have to be a genuine psychopath to like want to do this, or this is like one part of your personality that is just really, really good to express through something like deathmatch wrestling, and you're like a chill, cool person the rest of the time,
Yeah.
And when you look at, like you brought up earlier, when you look at Jon Moxley and you look at Mick Foley and you look at Adam Cole, you look at like a lot of people who came up through CZW or some form of deathmatch wrestling, like these are some of the best wrestlers in the world. And I will always say Mick Foley is one of the most underrated workers of all time because he understood the entire 360 experience of pro wrestling so well, and he did everything very, very well. So yeah, no, it's very cool. So cool to have you on. Where can the people find you, Peapod, if they want to stay in touch?
I'm on a lot of social medias. I'm all over the place, but the username is Peapod Calls, the number 4 and the letter U. That's my handle on everything. I have a link tree, so it's linktree.com/Peapod Calls for you. And for booking inquiries, it's the same thing. It's Peapod Calls, the number 4, the letter U at gmail.com. You can check me out at Ruthless Pro Wrestling and a handful of other places as well. I have links in my link tree to all of those companies as well as IWTV, where you can watch a lot of our stuff and everything. Ruthless Pro Wrestling, ruthlesspro.com. Those are all the links for all of our socials and everything. Buying tickets, checking out a lot of our exclusive gear with a company called Deathmatch Worldwide, where you can get a lot of RPW gear as well. A lot of independent wrestler gears has their stuff through Deathmatch Worldwide as well, and you can check that out. But yeah, Scum of the Earth, July 20th. That's coming up in days away when this episode drops, and hopefully in the future I can come back on and talk more about wrestling and promote shows and whatnot, and sit down, shut up, and mark out. That's what I like to do. That's what you guys are doing, and that's what I think more people should do.
Man, this is a total blast. And yeah, we have to have you back on.
Done. Time and place.
Just scratch the surface of what we could talk about. So
yeah,
that's what's fun about this. There's always more to do, right? But anyway, this has been Peapod with Ruthless Pro Wrestling. I'm Blade Daly, and this has been Sit Down, Shut Up, Mark Out, a very special edition, and we'll be back at you sooner than later. But till then, pro wrestling forever, baby.